I have the privilege of being in Sydney outside the Mizrahi Shul in Bnei Akiva Snif. It's Thursday afternoon, the 2nd of November. As we know, exactly 100 years ago, the centennial of the commemoration and celebration of the Balfour Declaration. We know that many of our great rabbis, amongst them Rabbi Meir Simcha of Dvinsk, the Chofetz Chaim, and many others, felt that the 2nd of November, 17th of Cheshvan, 2017 was a seminal moment, a turning point in Jewish history. So much so that Rabbi Meir Simcha of Dvinsk came to the Central Synagogue in Dvinsk and spoke in the aftermath of the Balfour Declaration and said, "Not in 1850 years has the Jewish people had such an occasion where we got a sense of it, or what it means to be a people, that the nations of the world had recognized the historic right of the Jewish people to return to the land that God had given them." And indeed, it was the first time that any world power, since the destruction of the temple, its leadership, its government, had acknowledged this historic connection. It's also significant. I'm visiting our Mizrahi communities in Melbourne and Sydney, and what is so significant, as we all know, it was only 2 days ago, the 31st of October, which indeed is the 100th year anniversary of the Battle of Beersheba, which the Australian and New Zealand troops played such a major role in the Battle of Beersheba. And indeed, in the aftermath of the battle in Beersheba, when the road to Jerusalem and to conquering from the Ottoman Turks was open to the British, it would take many, many months still to do. In the aftermath of the Battle of Beersheba, the Balfour Declaration ensued. I want to end and say something incredible that I read by the niece of Lord Arthur James Balfour, the foreign minister who declared the famous Balfour Declaration. Lady Dugdale said that when her uncle was on his deathbed and she was speaking to him about his life achievements, he said to her, and she writes, "My uncle said to me that the most significant thing he had done in his entire life was contribute towards the return of the Jewish people to their ancient and historic land." This is very significant, as he was a previous not only foreign minister but Prime Minister of Great Britain. And I feel that so many people like Malcolm Turnbull and all those Australians who are now in Israel and participated in the battles for the Holy Land, and Lord Balfour himself and so many felt that they were a part of history. Supporting the Jewish people was not only supporting the historic injustice, putting that right of the return of the Jewish people to the land that God had promised them, but also somehow being a part of history and contributing to something which would not only further what the Jewish people and their values stood for, but indeed the march of humanity towards a more ideal and more utopian world. How privileged we are to be celebrating the centennial of such a remarkable milestone. Shabbat Shalom.